Okay, this is the math eighth grade math. This is the unit 1B assessment review. And so this is the part 2 of the unit 1 review. And you can see right here, this test basically consists of adding and subtracting, multiplying, dividing decimals. We have some scientific numbers where you're going to do scientific notation or standard notation, and then we're putting numbers in order from highest to lowest or least to greatest. All right. So I'm going to do my work on this is the actual review, and so I'm going to put it on paper. So I'll just kind of work it as I go along, and you can kind of go from there. All right. I will have if you hadn't noticed, I did put an answer key on the Google Classroom as well. So this is math, 8th grade math. And this is the unit 1, and this is the B. So this is like the part 2. I didn't want to just give one big test. I just want to do like 2 separate ones. And this is the review. All right, so here we go. And everybody's excited, so am I. So number 1. All right, so there's a couple of rules. So the big content is that we're learning and reviewing over concepts that you learn in elementary school, but we're also mixing them in with integers. So you learn integers, you learn decimals, you learn fractions, but we're throwing them all together. All right, so here we go. And we're just preparing you for the algebra when it comes around. All right, so the adding and subtracting integer rule. And this is what you really need to make sure you know, the adding, subtracting integer rule. All right, so when we're adding, and how do I know that? I look right here, what's being done. Now you can see there's a subtraction sign there. So I'm adding and subtracting. This is the rule I need to follow. If the signs are the same, all right, so if they're both positive or both negative, we add the number and we take the sign of the biggest number. Now, even though a lot of kids go, well, they're both negative, so I already know it's negative. Well, the problem is think we start doing the multiplying rules and getting into algebra, you get the two mixed up. You get the adding rule mixed up with the multiplying rule. So I always try to get kids to think of the same concept. Just look at the sign number, which one's the biggest, and go with that sign. All right, so here we go. We are going to look. So like in elementary school, you learn keep, change, change. Remember in my class, we actually will talk the math. The sign on the 65 is a positive. This one's a negative 93. That's a subtract sign. So whenever you see a subtract sign, okay, think of somebody that you know that's being negative, or maybe you're being negative. We want you to be positive. So whenever something's negative, we always want to change it to a positive situation. So that's one way to kind of remember when you change it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to go ahead and write this 93.002. We're going to change. Remember, we're going to add the opposite. So instead of a subtract, we're going to say plus, and the opposite of positive 65 is a negative 65.2. All right, once we have a positive, then we just check the signs out. If you look, I got a negative here and a negative here. 2 negatives mean we add, and we're going to go with the sign with the biggest number. So I'm just going to take these 2 numbers, and I'm just going to line up my decimal, and I'm just going to add them up. And I'm going to put what I call little dash zeros, kindergarten zeros. That's what we learned in kindergarten, is to follow your numbers and kind of like learn how to write your numbers. Remember, we're adding because they're both negative. So because they're both negative here, we add the numbers. So I'm going to just add 2, 0, 0, 0. That's 2. 3 and 5 make 8, and 9 and 6 make 15. So my answer is 158.202. Now, look, this is what I was talking about. We want to make sure we kind of get in a habit of looking for the biggest number. The biggest number is on 93. And yes, I know they're both negative. And so sometimes when they're both negative, then the answer is a negative. But again, kids will get this rule mixed up later on with the multiplying and dividing rule. So we want to make sure we don't mess this up. Since 93 is the biggest number, it's negative. So we're going to just say the answer is negative. All right, number 2. Whenever you see parentheses, like you see this side by side, this means multiply. All right, so this means multiply. So whenever you see two parentheses side by side, we mean multiply. Now, I did not fix this, but if you have the signs are the same, you add, but if the signs are different, you subtract. I did not put that. My apologies. All right, so we have multiplying. Now, multiplying is a little different. When you multiply, all right, so when we talk about multiplying, we have a different set of rules. All right. So we need to make sure that when we have two negatives, when we're multiplying, I'm going to put the parentheses here because that's what means multiply. It turns the sign into a positive. If I have two positives when I multiply, it's still a positive. However, if I have only one negative, then my answer is a negative. So I have a little triangle here that might help some of you if you want to try this. Here's my little triangle. All right, so think about this. If I have two negatives, my answer is going to be positive. If I have a positive and a negative, my answer is going to be negative. If I have a negative and a positive, my answer is still going to be negative. So that's how you can remember the multiplication rule. All right. And so these two rules, you have to know when to use them and what the rule is. That is what you really need to study more than anything. All right, so these two mean multiply. I like to put the more digits on top. So this is a 11.22. I'm going to not worry about the negative signs right now. This is a 3-digit, so I'm going to put it down here. We don't have to line up the decimal. Now, if you look at this one has two negatives. So if I have two negatives, that means my answer is going to be a positive. So we already know, without having to do anything, my answer is going to be a positive because there's two negatives. Think about two negatives when you multiply, make a positive. All right. Again, look, two negatives when you multiply, make a positive. If you have one negative, your answer is negative. One negative, your answer is negative. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and multiply this. All right, 6, that's 12. Carry your 1. 6 times 2 is 12 plus 1 is 3. Carry 13, I mean. Carry your 1. 6 times 1 is 6 plus 1 is 7. 6 times 1 is 6. All right, I finished the 6's, so I'll put a little X here. 5 times 2 is 10. Carry your 1. 5 times 2 is 10 plus 1 more is 11. Carry your 1. 5 times 2 is 5. Carry your 1 is 6. And that makes 5. So I finished the second one. So I got two X's. 8 times 2 is 16. Carry your 1. 8 times 2 is 16. Plus 1 more is 17. Carry your 1. 8 times 1 is 8. Plus 1 more is 9. And that's 8. It's kind of nice because the kind of helps me with the numbers. It makes it easier. Add them going straight down. It's 2, 3. That's 8. 6 more is 14. Carry your 1. That's 7, and 7 make 14, plus 6 more makes 20. This is 7. 2 and 5 is 7, and 9 and 7 makes 16, and that's a 9. All right, now here's the big rule. You got to watch this. You learn this when you're in elementary school. You have two numbers behind the decimal here. Look, 1, 2. This one you have 1, 2. You have two numbers behind this decimal. So together, if you look, 1, 2, 3, 4, you have to have 4 numbers behind the decimal here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So my answer is going to be 96.0432. And that would be my answer. It's positive because two negatives, when you multiply, make a positive. All right, number 3. Number 3, we have 3 decimals, and we're going to be adding and subtracting them. So I'm just going to list them here so you can see them. Now, it doesn't matter which one you do first. You could do this one and this one, these two together. You can do these two together. It doesn't matter. But when you just got to be careful what you're doing here. All right. This one means I don't change anything. This one means I do change. So I'm going to go ahead and write this 15.0517. I'm going to, remember, this is a positive. I'm going to add the opposite, and the opposite of positive is going to be a negative 2.42. All right, and I'm just going to leave that in a different color so you can see what I changed, and a 13.2. All right, so I could add these two together. That would be a really easy one, just to add them together and then subtract that number there. But I'm just going to go left to right just so you can kind of see it. So I'm going to put I'll put it right here. So I'm going to line up my decimal. I always put the bigger number on top. I'm subtracting because that's a negative and that's a positive. Remember up here, A negative and a positive means you subtract. You go with the biggest number. Remember, we're adding, not multiplying. This is multiply. Oh, I didn't put multiplying, did I? Multiplying, dividing. Okay, so here we go. So I'm going to subtract these. Now notice I got some space here. So I'm going to put my little kindergarten zeros. If you remember in class, we talked about the little dash zeros is what you used to do to practice your numbers. So I'm going to subtract. So it's 7, 1, 3. I got to borrow. That's, it can't take 4 from 0. So I'm going to borrow 1 from here and put it here, and it makes it look like 10. That's 6. Dot. A dot is a dot. That's a 2, and that's a 1. All right, so this right here is 12.6317, and I still got to add 13.2 to it. Well, this is nice, isn't it? It's a plus sign. They're both pluses, so I'm just going to add, and I'm just going to line up my decimal, 13.2. I can put my little kindergarten zeros here if I want to, and I'm just going to add them because that's all I have to do. That's 7138.52. Oh, that's sweet. 25.8317. It's going to be positive. Do I have to put a plus? No, because it's a positive number, just like your age. You don't go around saying I'm positive 15. All right, that was a tough one, wasn't it? All right, number 4. Number 4, look at it. It looks like a couple of parentheses, so that means we're going to do what? Hopefully you see it's going to be multiply again. All right, look at my 2 signs. If I'm multiplying, I'm using the multiplying dividing rule. 2 negatives make a positive. See, look, 2 negatives make a positive. So we already know my answer is a positive. So we're just going to line it. That's 4 digits. That's 3. So I'm going to go ahead and put the 4 digit on top and the 3 digit on the bottom. Now I'm going to multiply. 7 times 1 is 7. 7 times 3 is 21. Carry a 2. That's 0. That's 2. 7 times 1 is 7. Finish that guy. All right, do the 7 again. And it's going to be the same thing because it's the same number. So I'll put an X here. So 7 times 1 is 7. 7 times 3 is 21. Carry a 2. And 7 times 1 is 7. I like it when they use the same numbers. All right, mark it out there. We got 2 X's now. See? 1, 2, 2 X's. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times 0 is 0. And 2 times 1 is 2. All right, add them up going straight down. 7, 8, 5, 15, 8. So I had to bar, I could bring my 15 over, and then 2. All right, how many numbers are behind the decimal? This one has 1, 2. I mean, you could do them right here. 1, 2, 3 total. So that's 2. This is 1. I have to have 3 on the bottom. So my answer is going to be 285. And it's a positive 87. All right, you ready to go to the next one? Number 5. We're a third of the way there almost. So number 5. Number 5 is 1816 divided by 4. Okay, so you got to know that this one is inside the box. So the first one's inside, the second one is outside. And what do I mean by that? I mean this box right here. So the 4 goes on the outside, 816 goes on the inside. Now look, I'm dividing. So you remember, if I'm dividing, there's 1 negative. So my answer is automatically going to be a negative. So I know it's a negative. So we're just going to divide. My decimal is right here. So I'm going to bring it up. 4 goes into 8 2 times. Bring down my 1. So I have 1 here. Does 4 go into 1? No, it's too small, so we can't. Bring down to 6. Can 4 go into 16? Yes, 4 times. And that's it. So my answer is going to be negative 204. Number 6. Number 6 looks like a nice one, doesn't it? It's negative 6.024 divided by 0.04. All right, there's another one. This one goes outside. I'm sorry. This one goes inside. This one goes outside. So if you see it like this one goes inside and it goes outside. So we're going to have our box again. 0.04. 6.024. Notice I'm not worried about the negative because look, how many negatives do you have? 1. So my answer is going to be negative. All right, so here we go. Now here's how we do this. You see the decimal on the outside? We got to make this look like a whole number. So how many times do I move the decimal to make it like a complete whole number? Well, I move it over twice. And if I move that over twice, I have to move this one over twice. So now my new decimal is going to be there. I'm going to go up and I'm going to say it's right there. All right, so I'm going to rewrite it so you can see it. That's a 4. Boy, my division sign looks horrible, doesn't it? That's what happens. Let's redo this one. It just looks terrible. There we go. Looks beautiful now. So it's 602.4. So there's my decimal. Ready? So how many times does 4 go into 6? 1 time. Bring down your 0. How many times does 4 go into 20? 5. Now notice the 0 here. So my 20 that I'm writing, the 0 goes here. So I'm putting my 5 right there. All right. Now look, I'm bringing down my 2. This is 0. So I don't need to put anything there. So I got a 2 here. How many times is 4 going to 2? Well, it goes right above it. And 4 can't go into 2. So we're going to say 0. Bring down my another 4. How many times is 4 going to 24? 6. So my answer is going to be, and we're going to try to put it where we can see it. We have a negative here. We only have one negative. So my answer is going to be a negative 150.6. Number 7. We have negative 523.08 plus, and then I have a negative 50.502. All right. So sometimes they'll put a parentheses around this guy. Sometimes they won't. Look at my signs. My signs are both negative. Remember, on the first page, if we have 2 negatives, it means if the signs are the same, because we're adding here, we're going to add. So I'm just going to line them up. All right. So if you don't remember what I said earlier, I said when the signs are the same, so they're both positive, we add the numbers. All right. If they're different, we subtract. And I'm just abbreviating everything. That's a plus. Okay. So I'm not changing anything. It's not a negative. So we're not going to change anything. It's a plus. So we just look at the signs. There's a negative. There's a negative. 2 negatives means I'm adding. So I'm just lining up the decimals and I'm going to add them. Notice this one has just my decimal. There's my decimal. I need to put a kindergarten 0 here, and I'm just adding. All right, so there we go. My sign biggest number is a 523. So my answer is negative. So that will be negative 573 is my answer. 573.82 to be exact. That's number 7. All right, let's look at number 8. 8's a little different. All right, first operation you see is an add or subtract. So that means if it's an add, I can just look at the signs, but this one means I've got to add the opposite. So I'm going to go ahead and do this, add the opposite. The opposite instead of a minus is a positive. I'm just going to put a little positive so you can see it. And I'm just going to write this down. So I change that, but I don't change the first one. So this one will stay negative 24.65. Signs are different, so I'm going to subtract them. Which number's bigger? See, the signs are different, plus and a minus, plus and a minus. So I'm going to just line them up. All right, now I'm subtracting them because they're different. So I'm just going to subtract them. I got to make the decimals look the same. So there's 4 on the bottom. So I want to make 4 on the top. This is 0 minus 4, can't do it. So I'm going to make this look like 50. So I'm going to borrow 1 from 50, make it 49. Can't take 9 from 4. So I got to borrow 1 from 6. And this I got 1.55 9.6. Okay, so look, which one's bigger, 23 or 24? Right here. Which number's bigger, 23 or 24? Well, you hopefully say 24. That's a negative. So my final answer is going to be negative 1.5596. That wasn't too bad, was it? Number 9. All right, so look, this one's a negative. This is a plus sign, so I'm not changing anything. That's a positive, so I have a positive and a negative. I'm subtracting them because the signs are different. One's a plus, one's a minus, so I got to subtract. See the minus and plus? So I'm going to subtract. I like putting the bigger number on top. Line up my decimals, put my little kindergarten zero where I need it. Subtract. I'm just borrowing like you learned in school or elementary school. And I got 11.851. So 11.851, which number's bigger? 72 is bigger than 60. It's a positive. So my answer is going to be a positive 11.851. All right. So we did those. That's all the adding, subtracting decimals. Now we get to have a little fun with converting scientific notations. All right. So this right here, I'm going to do number 10. This is what we call a standard number. A standard number is just a plain number. Remember, the decimal is right here, unless you see a decimal somewhere else. I mean, I could have something that's 2.35. That's still the standard number, and the decimal's there. It's okay. But this is, if I don't see the decimal, I know it's at the end. I want to make it into a scientific number. So I've got to move the decimal where there's only one number in front of the decimal. Here's the number right there. That number will be in front. So I got to move it this way. 1, 2, 3, 4. I moved it 4 places. Now here's the tough part. All right. You got to pay attention to this. My number is 5.2751. We have to have times 10. All right. Now, this is how I did it. We moved it 4 places. So the exponent's a 4. Now you got to look at this. Is this number before we started? This is how I get kids to remember. If this is more than $1, then it's a plus sign. If it looks like it's less than $1, like 0.0 something, then your exponent will be a negative. All right. But the number we start with is like $52,000. That's more than $1. So I'm going to say it's plus 4. So now look. If this is plus 4, we'd go 4 this way, and you would see my decimal would end up after the 1, which matches. So you got to be careful. Kids get these backwards all the time. So let's do this one. Here's the one that looks like it's less than $1. See how this looks like it's less than $1? So you know your exponent's going to be a negative because of this right here. Now we got to move the decimal. This decimal here, we got to move it 1, 2, 3. Right there. So we know it's going to be 5.67 times 10. And how many times I move it? 1, 2, 3. So it's negative 3. All right. So what happens if we have a scientific number and we want to convert it into standard form? So this is number 12. All right. This one's simple because if this is positive, you go that way. If it's negative, you go that way. So positive this way, negative that way. And this is positive. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it looks like I add 2 zeros. 1, 6, 1, 2, 1, 2. And there's my answer right there. I just follow the decimal. This is a positive. So I go to the right 6. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, and I got to add 2 more zeros. Let's do the next one. All right, negative means I go that way 5 spots. So here we go. See the decimal? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So look, all these little blanks get 0. So I'm going to put 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm putting 4 zeros. then 2, 0, 1, 2, 5, 5. The rest of the numbers don't change. It's just the decimals. So right there is my answer. And like we talked before, see how this is a negative exponent? It looks like it's less than $1. This one's a positive. It looks like it's more than $1. Number 14. Number 14, we are to go from highest to lowest number. All right, so I'm going to lay these out like they are in decimal form. Okay, so here's my numbers. I think I got them all for 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, the only one that's not in full decimal form is this one. It's a scientific number. So we're going to convert this. This means move it over. It's positive, so move it over 1. So we're going to move it over 1. So the top one will be 73.60. This one, if I move it over, it's going to be 73.14. This one's 70, if I could write, 0.4. And this one's going to be 73.069. Now, notice all my first numbers are 73. My decimals are lined up. That's important. All right, now I'm going to just count. I have 3 numbers here, 1, 2, and 2. So I want to make all of them look like they have 3 digits. So I'm going to put little kindergartens and see now that if I put 2 there, like this one is, it looks like 400. If I put a 0 here and now it's got 3 digits, it looks like 140. If I put a 0 here, that looks like 600. All right, now we want to go with the highest. So which number is the highest? Well, these are all the same. So look at the back numbers. That looks like 600. That looks like 140. That looks like 400. And that looks like 69. So this guy is my first answer, 600. Then the next one looks like 400. So that's my next answer. Then this one's 140. That's the next highest. So I'll put that 3, and 69 will be my last answer there. So that's my answers and what order they'd come in. See the little strategy that did made them all look like they're the same 6 digits. I mean, 3 digits, 3 digits, 3 digits, 3 digits behind the decimal. But you got to be careful and make sure these are all the same. Last one. I know everybody's standing ovation. Everybody's clapping. This is least to greatest. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing. This is a negative 0.09. Watch out for this one. This one says 0, negative 0.1409. This one's negative 0.019. This one's a negative 9 times 10 to the negative 3. And this one's a negative 0.0901. Okay, so a couple things you got to watch out for. This one, for sure, I got to move the decimal. See, it's an exponent. It's negative, so that means I find the decimal and I go 3 places this way. If I do that, it's going to be, I'm going to put a decimal in the front. It's going to be 009. Look, here's my decimal. Put a 0 here, so it's 009 because I'm going over to the left 3 spots. Here's my decimal. Go left 1, 2, 3, and then I'll put a 0 in front of it. This one looks good. And remember, it's a negative. I forgot all these are negative. So I'm going to put a negative here. Line up my decimal. We'll put a 0 first, too. I mean, I can put a 0 on all these. Actually, I should have. I don't know why I didn't. 09. Okay. Now watch out for this one. Where's the decimal? I'm trying to trick you. I'm trying to make sure you're paying attention. There's not a decimal. So it's at the end. So really my decimal is here and it's really 1409 and it is negative. We don't need the 0. It's just a trick. It's trying to draw you in. This one is, I'm gonna put a 0 here as this one. It's a negative as well. 0, here's my decimal, 019. And then the last one, we're going to put a 0. All these are negative. 901. All right. So we're going to do the same thing we did here. I got 2 numbers behind the decimal here. None, 3, 3, 3. Well, that's nice. All right. So I'm going to put 3 here and make this one 3. All right. Now we're going from least to greatest. We're talking about negative numbers. So let's talk about a number line. And you can look at the number line. Like in my room, for example, here's 0. Positive numbers go that way and they get bigger and bigger. Negative numbers go that way and they get less and less. All right. So no matter what, no matter where we're on the line, we going this way, the numbers are getting bigger. We go from left to right, it gets bigger. So if I have a negative 20, negative 20 is less than negative 5. That's less. It's smaller. Okay. So anything from the left going to the right, anything to the right of the number on the left is going to be small, is going to be bigger. So here we go. So the biggest number is the smallest. So if you look right here, that's a negative 1400. This is number 1. It's the smallest number. This is the smallest, the least number. It's the furthest one away from 0, and it's a negative. All right, now we want to find the next biggest number. That's 90. That's 0. Oh, we already took care of this. In fact, we could mark that out if we wanted to. This is 90. That's 19. That's 9. That's 901. This looks like number 2 because 901 is bigger. It's the second biggest number. See, look, if I look at that, which one's the biggest number? 901. What's the third biggest number? So we've already used this one and this one. So we can put little marks here saying that we're done. All right. So we have 90, 19, and 9. So this is number 3. All right. 19 or 9. That's number 4. And this is number 5. So this right here is actually the greatest number because it's closer to 0. We're going this way. All my numbers are negative and we're getting closer and closer to 0. Okay. That's it. If you have any questions, good luck to you on the test. If you have any questions, you can always come in for tutorials.